This week, the HPT returns to Iowa at the Prairie Meadows Racetrack Casino Hotel. Hundreds of hopefuls came to this beautiful property to race for the championship and take home over $72,000. After a weekend of action, the Final Six is ready to play under the national spotlight of the HPT. Greg Fossil Man Raymer is looking to win an unprecedented third title in one season. And the HPT's all-time money winner, Craig Casino, is back trying to win his second HPT title and add to his mountain of winnings. But both of them are going to have to get past 4 other talented players that are looking to put their own names in the annals of HPT champions. This is the HPT.
They come from all walks of life, each with a story to tell. All they need is a chip and a chair. It's an open casting call for those who love the game. This ain't your weekend home game. This is the HPT.
Sit right down, put on your poker face. You with the big dogs now. Better bring your best game. Talk trash all you want. To me, it's all the same. You won't leave with much when you come in second place. I'm the one with the stack showing 7 to the jack. Gon' cry to your mama cause I'm sending you back. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand. Last man standing with the money in my hand. I'll be the last man standing with the money in my hand.
Hello and welcome to the HPT. This week back in the great state of Iowa. We are at Prairie Meadows Racetrack Casino and Hotel in Altoona, Iowa, just outside of Des Moines. I'm Chris Hansen, and by my side is always a man who has been out in cornfields looking for baseball ghosts all week. He's Fred Bevel.
Well, you know, the line from that famous movie was proven true this weekend. If you build it, they will come. Prairie Meadows and the HPT built a tournament, and the players came in droves. Over $72,000 is going to our newest HPT champion, and as always, we have a final table ripe with drama, HPT history, and talented players ready to battle for the championship.
This week, Greg Raymer is trying for an unprecedented run of winning his third HPT event in just 3 months. And also back at the final table is the HPT's all-time money winner, Craig Casino. Craig has won over $350,000 for his skills at the poker table just on the HPT, and this week he's looking to add over $72,000 to that tally.
But standing in both their ways are 4 other talented players who have been battling for days to be here. Chad Lawson is the self-proclaimed blue-collar American. He's a local pipe fitter who's hoping this final table can give him some financial freedom and a chance to take his skills to the next level. I love this guy. I really do. I love his story. And Chris, he is my pick to take this thing down.
Oh, well, there it is, Chad. That's the Fred Bevel kiss of death. Good luck at the final table here tonight with Big Guy picking you. All right, let's meet some of the final table and then throw the cards in the air and play some poker.
My name is Benjamin Stroh from Waterloo, Iowa. I'm in the real estate and scrap business.
Hi, my name's Chad Lawson. I live here locally in Des Moines, Iowa. I work construction and the plumbers and steam fitters, local 33.
Hi, I'm Greg Fossilman Raymer, back again. I'm going to try to make history and win 3 HPT titles in one season.
To prepare for this, I did absolutely nothing. What can you do? You know, you just got to get in there and play. Well, hopefully I get some good cards and make a few right calls and right folds, and it all works out good. I don't know if my skill level matches up with them, but I'm surely short on experience. These guys have a superior resume, that's for sure. But I'm fearless, so I got that going for me.
Well, I'm passionate about local 33 because it's what I've been doing all my career. I've invested about 20 years in it now, and I'm the true definition of the blue-collar American middle class. And I have a lot of friends and family that also enjoy poker. They also enjoy the HPT. And they're going to be all out here to root me on, and hopefully we have a good finish.
I think this final table is going to be tougher. I mean, Craig Casino is a very good player, and he's going to be tough to deal with. And we've got other players who are, I'm not sure how experienced they are, but they're very aggressive, and I haven't found them easy to read.
Tonight's champion will leave with $72,000 in cash, and Fred, good money all the way down to sixth place.
Sixth place still going home with $14,500, but everybody wants that big money.
All right, here is the updated chip count. Greg Raymer does have the chip lead, but Craig Casino's right behind him.
Greg with 28% of the chips in play. Craig with 24% of the chips in play. And you can see everybody's kind of bunched up. The bottom stack is Josh. He's going to be looking to make a move pretty quick with only 14 big blinds in his stack.
All right, let's get the final table started. Blinds start at 8 and 16,000 with a 1K ante. This is Ben. He's got pocket deuces. Ben's from Waterloo, Iowa. And he will limp in with his deuces under the gun. Over to Ed. Ed will fold. Over to Craig Casino.
Craig has pictures of his family right next to his hole cards, quickly becoming the most famous kids in poker, next to Bernard Lee's kids.
Everyone's folding over to Greg Raymer. In the small blind, the champ's got Jack 5.
Easy decision for Greg to complete the blind and see a flop here, and Chad's going to check his option with the Brunson 10 deuce.
And is that our very first ever tuxedo t-shirt at a final table?
I love this kid style. Chad Lawson, a local pipe fitter here. Self-proclaimed blue-collar American.
Flop is 6 deuce queen. Ben is flop trip deuces. Greg is going to be first act. He will check. Action is on Chad.
That's 30,000.
And Chad is going to fire, makes it 30,000 to go. Over to Ben with the trip deuces.
Ben calls and a 3-seat.
And he's just going to flat call.
Nothing scary on that flop. Raymer gets out of the way, so now we're heads up with Chad and Ben. Turn is a 7 of hearts. Chad first act.
Well, Chad threw out a feeler bet on the flop to see how his deuces were, got flatted, so as you would expect, he's going to slow down here on the turn. And here comes Mr. Stroh, looking to get some value out of the trips. $114,000 pot. He makes it 45 to go. Very nice bet here. Going to be hard for Chad to get away from this, even with just a pair of ducks.
Call.
And he is going to complete the call.
Chad Lawson from Pleasant Hill, Iowa. And here comes the turn. It's an ace of hearts. Chad first to act again.
Check.
Oh, Chad grabs chips and then checks. That ace might be an action killer for Ben here.
75.
He's going to fire out 75,000 in chips.
Back to Chad. And if there is any more chips from Chad's stack to go into this pot, I would be extremely surprised and a little disappointed, because a man with a tuxedo t-shirt shouldn't be making that kind of call. He will fold, and Ben is going to win our very first hand here at the final table at Prairie Meadows. Blinds continuing on at 8 and 16,000 with a 1K ante.
This hand starts with Greg Raymer on the button, making Ed Sinat first to act.
Every final table needs someone named Ed at it.
It seems we have a lot of Eds at the HPT final tables.
A lot of good Midwestern Eds around the poker world.
Craig Casino peels back pocket kings. Craig is the all-time money leader on the HPT. Over $350,000 in his coffers from the wins on the HPT. He's going to make it 36,000 to go with kings.
Craig says he's going to spend his money on family, charity, and poker buy-ins. I hope he's not planning on buying more family. As far as I know, that's still illegal here in the United States of America.
Greg Raymer picks up King Jack on the button, and he is going to make the call.
Chad will fold, and now to Ben in the big blind.
It's Queen 7 for Ben Stroh. He's going to fold.
And so past HPT champions will see flops together.
Flop comes down.
And here is the flop. It is 7-3-7.
Actions on Craig.
No help for Raymer's King Jack. Greg way ahead in the lead right now. And make no bones about it, these two really want to play at each other. Craig Casino looking to put a notch in his belt by knocking out the world champ and a two-time HPT champ.
And Mr. Raymer knows that Craig Casino is pretty much as big as it gets on the HPT. 60,000 is the bet from Craig over to Greg.
Raymer deliberates and decides to lay it down. Good hand, small pot for Craig Casino, unfortunately. It's going to be tough to get chips out of Greg Raymer, that is for sure.
More poker from Iowa when we return on the HPT. Thanks for coming back to the HPT. Let's meet the rest of this talented final table.
My name is Ed Sinnott. I live here in Clive, Iowa, local guy, and I'm self-employed.
Hi, my name is Craig Casino. I'm from Winfield, Illinois.
My name is Josh Birkenbio. I'm from Hamilton, Indiana, and I am a manager of a landscape company.
Yeah, it's been kind of a surreal experience the last few days. Usually don't figure on Monday afternoon you're going to be on TV playing in a poker tournament, so it's been a fun experience. I got in on a $120 satellite, so this is all gravy from whatever I win from the tournament. So yeah, maybe take a little vacation with my winnings. So.
My strategy for today is to be somewhat patient in the beginning. I'm going to realize that some of the short stacks maybe don't want to sit down and be out of the hand right away, so I might put a little pressure on them if I have something at all to work with. Playing with Greg Raymer is an experience. I mean, it's just a wonderful thing, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure he doesn't get 3 before I get 2.
The one thing I like to do with the money is I would like to maybe one day become a poker player. I really enjoy the game, have a lot of fun, meet a lot of nice people, and you know, that's my ultimate goal.
Craig Casino has taken over the chip lead with 1.2 million in chips. And Fred, a couple of people going in the wrong direction. Greg Raymer headed backwards, losing $218,000 from the start of this final table, and Mr. Casino has upped his stack over $100K.
The field is bunching up together. One big swing pot can change the momentum here at this final table.
Chad Lawson is going to be first act. He looks down at 7-4. That will go to the muck, over to Ben. Ben folds back to Ed. Ed will fold back to our chip leader. How many children are in that picture?
There's a lot of kids in that picture.
Looks like the Duggar family photo.
Craig is a busy, busy man.
Craig's going to raise it up with Jack 8, makes it $32,000. Josh folds his small blind back to Greg Raymer. And Greg's got King 8 in the big blind. I have a feeling these two will be butting heads yet again.
We got some Greg on Craig action. Heads up one more thousand.
These guys definitely want to play each other. Craig Casino, not at all intimidated with Raymer's resume.
Are those the official glasses from 04?
Don't try to talk to Greg Raymer in a hand.
Greg Raymer will not talk to you after the flop. The flop is King Deuce 5.
Well, Greg has flopped top pair here. Craig Casino has nothing
32.
except a 32,000 chip bet. These two guys played at the same table quite a bit before we got to this final 6 here. And Greg is just going to flat call.
3,000 change. 35, 32.
Let's see the turn.
And here comes the turn. It's a 9 of diamonds.
Action's on Greg. He checks.
Still nothing for Craig Casino here. Greg is going to check over to him. Craig fired 1 bullet. He is not going to fire the second bullet. They're going to check to the river.
River's a deuce of
River's
diamonds.
another deuce. And so Raymer's first act.
Well, Greg sitting on top pair has the best hand.
Raymer
And he is going to bet it.
5,000.
Makes it 75,000 to go.
Betting about half the pot. Over to Craig.
Raise 175.
Casino raises
Craig is trying to make a play here.
snap call.
And Greg Raymer snap calls him, shows the winner.
Greg shows the king of spades and the 8 of hearts.
Obviously, Raymer put him on absolutely nothing. Thinking maybe he also had a king and you just had him out kicked, or maybe put him on the 5. Definitely didn't put him on the deuce with that quick call. And just like that, Craig Casino loses the chip lead that he enjoyed for exactly 1 hand.
Well, he's not too far off that chip lead. I have a feeling these two guys are going to duel a lot more at this final table.
All right, Mr. Casino first act here, and he will fold. Now over to Josh.
Josh Birkenbuell from Hamilton, Indiana. He's a manager of a landscape company. Chris, if he looks a little bit listless today, it's because he did not take my advice and go to bed last night. He decided to stay at the bar and drink with me.
Oh.
As he kept buying me drinks, I kept saying you should really go to bed.
But thank you.
Thank you.
Again, just a phone call would be great. Greg Raymer raises pocket kings. 33,000 is the raise. We're now to Ben in the small blind. Ben will see a flop with ace-9 and to Ed.
33.
Ed Sonat from Clive, Iowa. Self-employed 51-year-old.
He's going to call with king-3 out of the small blind here. So we're three-handed going to the flop. Greg Raymer with the best of it with the wired kings.
I'd like to welcome Ed to his very first HPT event, playing at the final table. He's 1 for 1, not bad. Flop is queen, queen, 8.
Greg way ahead with the best hand here. Ben's going to check. Ed's going to check. Action on Greg now.
Lawson man bets 50,000.
And he is going to fire 50,000.
Ben tosses him in.
Ben folds over to Ed with king high. He will fold, and easy peasy lemon squeezy. Greg Raymer wins another one here at the final table. Shows his pocket kings. Greg Raymer is the kind of guy that you will give him all your chips and you'll smile. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
He's a very pleasant person to play the game of poker with. When he's in the hand, he's all business, but in between the hands, he's a joy to talk with.
When you walk around the poker room, you hear plenty of players asking him opinions on hands. He'll talk to anyone, take photos with anybody. Heck, you and I don't even say hello to the doorman. I mean, it's terrible. We've become jaded and horrible people.
Ed's going to raise it up with Jack-9, affectionately known on the HPT as the Chris Hansen hand.
Yeah, that's the true Hansen, Jack-9 hearts, too. That's the one I really lose the money on.
Here is Josh. Going to play his first hand at this final table with 7-4 of diamonds. Calling from the big blind.
Josh playing the part of villain against my Jack-9. And the flop is 4, 5, 10. It's all hearts. Why can't that happen when I play Jack-9 hearts?
Because you run bad. Ed has flopped the flush. Josh checks to him. Ed's going to bet.
Josh has bottom pair. 30,000 is the bet from Ed. And Josh is all in. And, of course, a quick call from Ed. And, boy, Josh only got involved with one hand at this final table. Better luck doing tequila shooters with you last night at the bar than playing here at the final table. He's not dead yet, but Freddie has just a shoelace holding the door open.
Yeah, he's going to need running cards here for a boat to beat the flush.
And the turn is a queen of hearts, and that's going to do it. Our first casualty at this final table will be Josh.
Well, Josh has had a great run at this final table. He came in as the short stack, knew he was going to have to play pretty aggressive, just couldn't get the luck he needed. Let's take it down to the floor and see what he has to say about his HPT final table.
I had a great week. You know, you told me last week that I finished 6th here. I'd take it in a heartbeat. You know, a little disappointing I didn't finish any better now that I made it that far, but hey, it was a hell of a week. Hell of a week.
Plenty more final table action when we come back to Prairie Meadows Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel. Thanks for coming back to the HPT with Fred Bevel. I'm Chris Hansen, and down the stretch they come. That's my audition for the track caller here at Prairie Meadows Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel. Fred, do I get the job?
No. You do have this job, though. Greg Raymer is our chip leader once again with 29% of the chips in play. Chad Lawson takes over the second place spot with 20% of the chips in play. Everybody's still on the hunt here as we continue with blinds at 8 and 16,000 with a 1K ante.
Over to Craig.
Craig has 10 jack offsuit and a handsome picture of his family.
The 59-year-old from Winfield, Illinois announces a raise to 38,000 with Jack 10 over to Raymer, 9 deuce.
Raymer will sit this hand out over to the local pipe fitter wearing a tuxedo at this final table, Chad Lawson.
It's a tuxedo shirt.
It looks like a tuxedo. I'm calling it a tuxedo. Don't you judge me.
Chad's going to get involved on the button with Queen 6 of spades. Pocket kings.
It's a pocket kings party at this final table.
Yeah, everyone's getting them. It's the hot thing to do. It's kind of like those colorful headphones.
Ben Strode deliberating what to do with the big wired pair. Two people in the hand already. Probably wants to thin the field a little bit.
I'd pop it all the way up to 100,000 and call it good. Just say 100,000.
Raise.
Ben announces raise.
Well, he makes it 96,000, pretty close. That's going to get rid of Ed Sinat.
96,000 is really the new 100,000.
Over to Craig Casino now with his 10-jack offsuit. 58,000 to go.
Craig started this hand by raising with Jack 10.
And that's going to happen a lot with Craig. If he's going to enter the pot, he's going to adopt the first and vigorous method and generally raise it up. He's going to get out of the way now, and so is Chad Lawson. And once again, the Kings win the pot, but it's not a very big pot.
I tell you, I'd rather win with Kings pre-flop than have an ace come on the flop any day.
Boy,
I'm
that's
sorry.
tough when that happens.
It's just, yeah, it's the worst feeling in the world.
Action this hand is going to start on Chad Lawson from local 33.
Ace 4 always gets involved when you got pocket kings. I've seen it 100 times.
Well, Chad wakes up with ace 10 suited and just going to flat call under the gun. Ben's going to fold. Ed's going to fold. Over to Craig. He's got baby connectors.
Craig won one of the biggest jackpots ever on the HPT, winning an event in Colorado a couple of seasons ago on the HPT.
Greg is going to check his option.
And so we'll be three-handed to this flop. And the flop is 8-9 Queen Rainbow.
Interesting flop texture here, Chris. Chad has got a gut shot straight draw. The wrong side of the deck landed for Craig's 4-5. Raymer was in the big blind. He's just got 6 high. But here comes Craig Casino.
32.
He never needed cards to bet. That's what I love about him. He makes it 32,000 to go. Raymer's going to get out of the way.
Back to Chad with his suited ace. And he will call. As he continues to play the rest of this hand out of position. Here comes the turn. It's a 7 of spades.
Well, now Chad has picked up an open-ended straight draw. And Craig Casino's picked up the gut shot straight draw.
Although he'd have the losing end if he hit that straight.
That is true.
So what's Casino going to do now?
60.
He's going to continue to fire. He took the lead in betting, and he's going to keep up the story that he's got the made hand.
Call.
Chad announces call.
Chad Lawson not going anywhere. Now, are Craig's bet just too small here, Chris, you think? Or
I think so. A lot of players fall in love with draws, and they just can't say goodbye, even when they're telling them that they don't love them anymore.
Well, Chad has the best hand, but it's only ace high giving him the best hand. If Craig can fire this third bullet, he could win the pot.
Maybe about 150,000.
And that's exactly what he does. All heart bets 150,000 on the river with 5 high, and it's going to work. Chad has missed his draws, and Craig Casino, aptly named Craig Casino, is going to scoop almost 400,000 in chips.
Yeah, Chad had a bad draw on the flop, and then it got just slightly better on the turn, just enough to keep him interested, and then that miss on the river ended up costing him a lot of chips. And we're moving around to Chad. Chad's got his brother and his dad in the audience today, Troy and Butch Lawson.
And Chad is just going to limp again on the button here, this time with Queen Jack. And now over to Ben. He's got 3-5.
Suited gap connectors, yeah.
Well, this is why you raise the button, especially if you have a hand.
You don't let 3-5 of hearts and deuce 4 of spades get involved.
That is true.
Here we go. The flop is King 5-3. What a flop for Ben.
Well, this could be dangerous. Ben does flop 2 pair, but Ed has got the open-ended straight draw. And Chad has got queen high. Ben is going to check. Ed's going to check his draw, and Chad's not going to throw anything out there.
And here comes the turn. It's an 8.
And that card is no good for anybody. Ben is hoping to pick up some value with his flop 2 pair.
Ben bets 23,000.
He's going to fire $23,000 at this. Ed is probably going nowhere with his open-ended straight draw.
Ed calls.
He is going to call, and for Chad, I think this is probably a good time to fold and maybe start thinking about raising the button next time.
Call.
He must not be able to hear me. I said it's a good time to fold. Maybe start thinking about raising the button next time.
Well, Chad should be right now just stacking up the blinds and the antes from this hand, but unfortunately he didn't raise, and so now here comes the river. It's a 7.
Well, Ben has the best with 2 pair. Unfortunately, he's not going to probably get any more money out of this hand. Ed has missed his draw. Chad just never really had much going into this hand.
53,000.
Ed is going to lay it down, and Chad is not going to make a move either.
Hey, Ben. Couple of cards.
Plenty more final table action when we come back. Welcome back to the HPT. It's time for our Pro Tip of the Week with World Series of Poker main event champion Phil Hellmuth. Tonight, Phil talks about check raising, value betting.
In my book, Play Poker Like the Pros, a New York Times bestseller. Ooh, thank you, thank you. I talk about a particular personality type at the table, a jackal, someone who's super aggressive. How do you play against a super aggressive player in No Limit Hold'em? They're doing a lot of raising, so there's really only 2 things you can do. 1, you can trap them. 2, you can re-raise them. But make sure you re-raise them enough. If they're raising every hand, then they're used to calling re-raises. So say they come in for 4,000 to go. You could call the 4 and raise 10,000. Make it so that it's not worth it for them to call a re-raise with Ace-7 or the 10-7 suited or whatever garbanzo beans the jackal happens to have in his hand. So 2 ways to play him. 1, trap him. 2, re-raise, but make sure your re-raises are big because he's likely to call a re-raise. Of course, I love trapping a jackal and just showing him big hand at the end for all their chips. They beat me all day long, but bing, bang, boom, they're in the taxi on the way home. I wonder, what did they say to themselves?
Here's the updated chip count. Craig Casino and Greg Raymer just going back and forth here with the chip lead, but the guy to watch out for right now is Ben. He's made the biggest jump since we've last checked in. He now has 47 big blinds, and Fred, he's picked up over 100,000 in chips.
Blinds have moved up. They are now 10 and 20,000 with a 2,000 chip ante. The one who needs to watch out, my friend, is Chad Lawson. Kind of check calling his way to losers is going to diminish that chip stack very quickly. Action is folding around to Greg Raymer. Greg looks at King Deuce suited.
Says here on my info sheet that Greg Raymer actually won the 2004 World Series of Poker main event.
Yeah, true story.
How did I not hear about this?
You got to get on the Google more.
Wow. Congratulations. Way to go, Greg Raymer. Congratulations.
Greg is going to raise it up on the button. Makes it 41,000 to go. Chad is going to get out of the way. Action now on Ben.
They both have King Deuce suited. Greg raised with it, but Ben is calling with it. And apparently it also says here he's known for his glasses.
That is true as well.
Wow. Here is the flop. It is 10, Jack, King, 2 spades, and both players pair the king.
Ben first to act here. And it looks like he is going to bet his top pair. This is going to be a hand of who can push the other off the pot. The board texture is a little bit dicey. 2 suits, connecting cards.
Right now, Ben could have any kind of hand in the big blind. Queen 10.
Action on Raymer, he makes the call.
Raymer is going to make the call. To the turn we go.
And the turn is a 9.
Well, now the texture gets even scarier. Now 4 to the straight is on the board. Both players playing top pair bottom kicker. Ben is going to check over to Greg.
And Raymer checks behind. So here comes the river.
Check, check. Let's see a river.
And the river is another king. Both players now with trip kings. It's like watching the pilot from a TV show that you know is going to be canceled. They both have the same hand, but one player's trying to convince the other that they've got the nuts.
Greg does make the call very quickly, and both players are going to show the same hand. And this pot will be chopped up.
Yeah, and the grumpy old man was just never the right cast for the neighbor on that one, if you ask me. It was a terrible concept. From go, that pilot had no hope.
I was glad when Casey turned it over.
We continue on at our final table here at Prairie Meadows Racetrack Casino Hotel, just outside of Des Moines, Iowa. Brand new home of the HPT in the state of Iowa. I'm Chris Hansen with Fred Bevel, and this is Ben Stroh with Ace-Queen suited.
Ben says more money, makes it 45.
And he is going to raise it up, makes it 45,000 to go. Action folded around to Mr. Casino, which you got to love that kind of a last name. His last name is Casino. His wife's maiden name is Slot.
Unbelievable. The casino slot wedding.
Exactly.
Or the slot casino wedding. Either way.
Raymer's going to call from the big blind with King 6 offsuits.
And the flop is King, King, Ace. A lot of potential action from that flop coming.
Oh, this is going to be huge. Greg has flopped trip kings. Ben has hit top pair with a queen kicker. Greg smartly checks over to Ben, and Ben is going to fire as expected. Makes it 55,000 to go.
And right now, Greg Raymer has cement shoes on, going nowhere.
He's covering his mouth to keep the drool from being seen by his opponent here.
Greg check raises it to 100.
Greg is going to raise it up here. Makes it 125,000 to go. I thought he might just flat call that, but
That play surprises me a little bit, too. I think he's figured out that Ben has an ace. Here comes the turn. Oh, no. The turn is an ace of diamonds, and now Ben has taken over, and Greg's got to be thinking, oh, wait a second. Man, I hope he doesn't have an ace.
Greg smartly checks over to Ben, and Ben is staging some chips here.
So Raymer's got kings full of aces. Ben has aces full of kings.
Ben fires out 100,000, and let's see if Greg Raymer can get away from this. A lot of players at an HPT final table would marry this and go right down the tubes with it.
But Greg Raymer is not your everyday player.
Raymer calls.
He does call, so we will see a river. And it's a 6 of spades. Greg is first to act.
That 6 is inconsequential, even though it did pair Greg's 6. He still has kings full of aces. And Ben not betting with aces full there on the river is a little surprising to me.
Greg Raymer might have been let off the hook on the river. Plenty more poker when we come back here to Prairie Meadows Racetrack Casino Hotel on the HPT. It's great to be back in the state of Iowa. Some familiar faces, some new friends as well on the HPT. And Fred, it's a 3-horse race at this final table with Greg, Ben, and Craig.
And Ben this time is the chip leader. You can see on our graphic here, he's up almost 300,000 since we last checked in. Action's going to start with Ben Stroh. And he has got wired 4s.
Ben makes it 55.
He's going to raise it up, makes it 55,000 with a baby pair. Craig Casino gets out of the way. Ed gets out of the way.
Ed and Greg fold over to Raymer in the 1 seat.
Raymer's got a6 in the small blind.
And those aren't calling chips, them's raising chips. He makes it 125,000 all day. 70 more for Ben to call.
Chad lays the big blind down.
And Ben does make the call.
Heads up to the flop. Raymer will lead it off. Let's see the flop.
And here we go. The flop is 9, ace, 10 with 2 hearts.
Well, Greg has outflopped Ben. He pairs his ace.
All over cards on that flop to Ben's pocket 4s.
And Greg is going to bet big here. 280,000 in the pot now. He is going to add 150,000 to it, and that's going to be good enough to get Ben to fold the wired 4s. Greg Raymer continues to stack the chips.
So Fossil Man not only plays a lot of poker, but Fred also does a lot of teaching. Fossil Man poker training could be coming to a casino near you very soon. I suggest you get in and listen.
Yeah, he's got a lot of great insight to the game, obviously. Ed is going to raise it up. He's got ace-9 suited. Action now on Mr. Casino.
One more thought to Greg and his teaching. A lot of people thought in 2004 when he won it all, he was kind of a flash in the pan, out of nowhere winner. Was a solid player before that. And Fred won the big tournament, obviously, and that propelled him into a career of poker.
Well, and then the next year, in 2005, the year Hashem won, Greg made a big run to 25th place and got knocked out on a horrible bad beat. And since then, he's just been a steady performer in the poker world.
We got a big hand developing here. Ed originally raised, Craig Casino called, and then Greg Raymer re-raised with ace-queen. Chad folds. And now Ben folds, and now action's back to the original raiser.
I'm on.
And Ed Sanat is going to go all in here. And now action moves over to Craig Casino. He is smartly going to fold, and now the big call from Mr. Raymer is made. He makes the 424,000 chip call.
Ed turns over the ace-9 of
I
diamonds.
thought I was racing against jacks or tens. Yeah, no, I thought you were just trying to squeeze us. I put you on a better hand. I just thought I had 2 overs.
Favorite here.
So Raymer's a big favorite to eliminate Ed. Here comes the flop. The flop is 10-9 queen.
Well, both players hit their kicker. Unfortunately for Ed, Greg's got the better of it with a pair of queens.
Ed's going to need a 9 and a 9 only to win this.
And here we go. The turn is another 9.
Lightning in a bottle for Ed. He turns trip 9s, and now it's Greg hoping to find one of the last 2 queens on the river to re-suck out on this hand.
Raymer says it's my turn. Is it? The river is a 3. And Ed, you can breathe again. Get a little blood up into the head there. Congratulations, Ed. You have doubled up, and you are still alive and in the hunt for the HPT Championship. And for Greg Raymer, okay, 700,000 chips. It was well worth it with ace-queen. They're trying to eliminate a player.
Almost a 1.3 million chip pot here. That puts Ed among the leaders. And it puts Greg Raymer among the bottom half of this final table. Blinds continuing on at 10 and 20,000 with a 2,000 chip ante.
All right, action is on Greg.
Jack 6 goes into the muck over to Chad Lawson.
Chad's gotten awfully quiet lately at this final table.
Well, I think he sensed he was starting to bleed away some chips. He's tightened it up, and it's serving him well here. He's just going to limp in with King 10. I'd like to see him start doing a little more pre-flop raising with hands like these.
Pocket 9s for Ben.
Ben ain't calling, he's raising.
And he's going to raise. He makes it 45,000. Ed folds over to Craig. And the casino calls.
The casino is gambling right now with 6 deuce suited.
Well, the casino does always have the edge, right?
Are we going to do this the rest of the show? We're going to talk about him in the third person? Because I'm kind of digging it.
Let's, at least for this hand, let's ride it out. Let's see how it plays.
Fair
Here
enough.
we go. The flop is king, deuce, king. While the casinos flop 2 pairs with kings and deuces, Chad flop trip kings.
And Ben's wired 9s are really in trouble here if he continues on in this hand. And he smartly checks here. We're going to go to the turn.
Let's see a turn card.
All right. The turn is a 10 and a full boat now for Chad. Craig's first act.
And Craig is going to see what bottom pair is worth right now. Makes it 40,000 to go.
You don't normally see casinos making that kind of mistake. Normally pretty good with their money.
Ben calls.
Chad calls. Ben calls. A lot of money in this pot as we move towards the river. It is a 4.
River is the 4 of
And the casino always has the final option on the river. You know, Fred, I don't like it. Let's get rid of it. It's weird.
Okay, fair enough. Craig is going to check here.
All right. Over to Chad with his full boat. Kings full of 10s.
Chad trying to figure out the right bet amount here to keep the other 2 players engaged. 275,000 in the pot. I say 180-ish.
Chad bet 75.
Wow, that's really small. That just might really stink of a king and get people to fold. I'm not sure.
Action's on Ben.
With a pair of 9s, Ben almost has to call here. And he does. Craig can easily fold, and he does. And I think, unsurprisingly, Chad's going to show a monster hand here.
And Ben had that look on his face like, oh, yeah, that just happened.
The action is heating up, my friend.
Greg Raymer still on a run here at our final table. We've got more poker when we return. Thanks for coming back to the HPT with $72,000 here tonight. Enter the winner's circle. You also get yourself a championship ticket to come to our end of the year championship open, which, Fred, is coming up very quickly.
Ed Sanat is the new chip leader with a little over 1.2 million in chips, and you can see on the graphic there his double up has improved his stack by almost 700,000. The other players at this final table all bunched up together. Still anybody's game here.
It's kind of like a nice tight crew cut. All the hairs are right there in place, waiting for something to happen. Queen 5 here for the world champ. He will fold for the rest of his life. He has to be called world champ. Imagine that.
That's awesome. I'm called guy that clogs the toilet.
Well, everyone's got what they have to be proud of, and that definitely is your calling card. Ed's going to raise. He makes it 50,000 with ace king out of the small blind, and now to Craig. And Craig will call with king 3 of clubs.
Craig defending the big blind. It's tough to get Craig to lay down his big blind hand.
And the flop is queen jack 9 rainbow.
Well, both players flop a gut shot straight draw. Ed way ahead with the ace king kicker.
And he's betting.
And once again, Craig is going to float him here on the flop.
And the turn is a deuce. Back to Ed with Craig picking up the flush draw now.
And Ed is not slowing down. He's missed with ace king on the flop and the turn, and this time he's going to fire 100,000. That might be enough to get rid of Craig.
I don't know, Fred. I think Craig is not going anywhere. He wants to see that river.
Well, he is getting 3-1 on his money, and he does have 2 different draws, a flush draw and a gut shot straight draw.
I knew I'd talk you into it. Craig does call. See, Fred, you're coming around to my way of thinking. And the river's a 4 of hearts, so Craig missed. Ed's going to be the winner if he can get Craig to fold.
Ed bets 100,000.
And look at Ed firing again out of position after missing with ace king, and that's good enough to get Mr. Casino to lay it down, and it's over 500,000 chips going into Ed Sanat's stack.
How about that? Just like that, the self-employed 51-year-old has started to make a move at this final table. For a long time, was very tight, very reserved. Now Freddie's got some chips in front of him, and he's not afraid to use them. Blind still at 10 and 20,000 with that 2K ante, and still 5th place money hanging out there for somebody. Just under 17,000 in cash.
Greg is going to lay it down over to Chad Lawson from Local 33 Steam Fitters Union.
He folds over to Ben. Ben's self-employed in real estate, and he limps in with 10-7 of diamonds. Ed folds over to Craig. And Craig will check.
Heads up to the flop. Let's see.
So we're heads up with Craig and Ben, and the flop is 6-6 king, couple of clubs.
No help for either player with this kind of flop. Let's see who blinks first. Craig is going to check. Ben checks behind. Player's getting a free turn card.
It's a 10 of spades. So now Ben has a pair of 10s.
Casino checks.
25.
Greg is going to check, and Ben is going to go ahead and bet his pair.
25,000.
Makes it 25,000 to go, and look at this. Here he goes again.
Haha, you've fallen into my trap. Not really. Craig makes it 100,000. And it's 75,000 for Ben to call, and he will.
You know, Craig can do that kind of a play to Ed. He can do it to Chad. He cannot do it to Ben or Greg Raymer.
The river is another king. Well, the board is double paired, but Ben didn't get counterfeit. He still has the best hand with kings and 10s. But Craig is ready to bet.
And he bets a pretty good amount, makes it 145,000 to go, and that's not going to be an auto call here for Ben.
I don't know if the board double pairing on the river is a good thing or a bad thing if you're Ben. Either way, if you put them on one of the sixes or one of the kings, you're already beat.
Ben goes nowhere, and he even says it. I just don't believe you.
And sure enough, Ben is going to win. His 2-pair beats Craig's absolutely nothing.
You know, this is the second time Craig's been caught bluffing on the river, but I like his style. That's also going to get him paid one of these hands.
When we started this final table, we had 2 big stories. Greg Raymer and Craig Casino, those 2 big stories still alive at our final table. Come back next time to find out who takes down this championship on the HPT. Now, do you think you've got what it takes to sit at our final table and collect the unreal cash? Well, then log on to hptpoker.com to find out about our upcoming events. For James Lawson and Fred Bevel, I'm Chris Hansen. We'll see you next time right here on the HPT.